they had looser policies, then maybe I would have smoked even more. And I don't, and I think I smoked enough.
Hey, Candid crew, and welcome back to another episode of If I May Speak Candidly, where we dive into the crazy world of wrestling from the comfort of my domain. Today, I am sitting with a legend. When we talk about innovators in wrestling, guys who didn't just adapt to the business, but straight up changed the game, this man is at the top of the list. He is a former WWE champion, an ECW icon, an Hall of Famer, and still out here doing the damn thing, whether it's wrestling, podcasting, or as I recently discovered, running a website built for wrestlers and their fans. The man, the myth, the legend, the whole effing show, Mr. Rob Van Dam. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing fantastic.
Good. Now it was through his website, Only Wrestlers, that this interview came about, which I have to admit, I love the name. I think it's pretty catchy. But this made me wonder, how did this all come about? So before we dive into everything else, Rob, tell me about the vision behind Only Wrestlers. What inspired you to start it, and what do you hope it brings to the wrestling world?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. Um, onlywrestlers.com is a website, and we have a platform there. It's easiest for me to describe Only Wrestlers, the entity, in like two separate halves, because it's all about balance, as is everything in life, right?
Right.
So we got the platform, which is a great place for wrestling fans to connect with wrestlers. If you look up, we got I think like 300, maybe more wrestlers that are on our roster, and we also have more signing up every day. There's people signing up. I still have a lot of my friends that I
Right.
still have to explain it to them, and they're
Right.
waiting for me to take the time. So but it's built to grow from the boom, from the very first idea. It's always been about growing. So we have so fans can subscribe to their favorite wrestlers, and the wrestlers can give them whatever content they want to give them or is requested by the fans. But it's up to each wrestler but they have videos. They have like a story like Instagram, and they have photos, and they have like a
Right.
feed, and there's all kinds of different ways that they can get the content out. It's a real personal connection. That's why I'm right here, because I saw your request, and
Right.
I'm able to respond to all the messages so far that I get on Only Wrestlers, and I've been doing the podcasts as I'm able to.
Yes.
But yeah, it's something that for me and my content, I go ahead and keep it as personal as it can get, and I'll share things that I wouldn't put out on Instagram or X. Like
Right.
recently going through the doctor and dealing with high blood pressure, and
Okay.
I'm sharing as I'm learning information. I'm sharing it. It's not out there in the public. People don't know about it, but the
Right.
only wrestlers followers do, and
Yeah.
it's really cool. Anyway, there's different. You follow the wrestlers on the platform, and as I said, that's like half of it. And with that, there's also a community chat room. Everyone can be there at the same time. Wrestlers, fans, everyone can connect. And the other half is that, like, when the followers join, they become part of a community. And then
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, we're doing actual wrestling shows, live shows using the wrestlers that are on our talent roster, and then the followers get to vote on certain things that decisions that help
Yes.
our company move forward. And as the fan base grows, as the company grows, and the followers grow, so will their leverage. So they'll be able to vote on much more important issues. You know, we're starting out at the bottom. You know, voting on a few matches, who gets to wrestle who. Uh,
Yes.
but as we grow and the website improves and we got way more wrestlers, way more followers, and it just keeps going in the direction that it's going, ultimately, well, not ultimately, but along the way,
Right.
the fans will be able to vote on like what towns we come to and more important stuff like that. And then we even have plans to grow from there. So it's pretty
Okay.
amazing with no end as to its potential in sight.
Yeah. Well, I know there was one voting um that I did vote for. I know I voted for Chris Masters. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
remember. So I did vote for that. And I've definitely been tuning into the website because, like I said, I just come to learning about it. But, we have all these traditional sites like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and stuff. So, just the idea that you can see your favorite wrestler, support them by paying for their subscription and to have that ability to talk to them, I mean, it's
yeah, and
cool.
but
And
if I could mention this, the different wrestlers will be normally like different prices as far as the
right,
subscription goes, but for this first live show we're doing March 20th in Hollywood, all the wrestlers that are on our show, you can join for the bottom price, $6.95, because we have this wrestling show and it's going to be live streamed. And for $6.95, you can buy a ticket and you can watch the live streaming, but also you can put that towards any wrestlers that are on the card to subscribe to them, because all the subscribers get to watch the streaming event. So
right.
that's something that and there's a lot of wrestlers there, you know, that are well known, like you said, Chris Masters,
Yeah.
Brian Cage is going to be there. I'll be there myself.
Yeah, of course. And I think Riddle had just recently joined too. I
Yeah, I
saw
don't
his
know if
name
he's
had
going to be in
popped up.
LA, but yeah, Riddle. I signed him up recently, and a lot of the wrestlers are still like warming up to it. They're not
Mm-hmm.
using it as much as they will. So at this stage, you know, we're getting the word out there, but even the website is still being tweaked like every day, like finding little errors and stuff.
Right.
So really, like as that grows and everything gets better, then we'll be wanting to get the word out even stronger.
Definitely. Absolutely. So, of course, when it comes down to different social media, traditional social media, celebrities and their fans, there's like a little epidemic that's going on called parasocial relationships where, the fans is not really understanding the boundaries, like they're kind of being invasive in their favorite athletes or celebrities' lives. One in mind comes up will probably be what Asuka went through more recently. So I guess my question would be, what are some of the initiatives that Only Wrestlers is taking in order to keep both the fans and the wrestlers safe?
Hmm, that's a that's a good question, and so basically, besides the filtering system that we do to screen followers when they want to sign up on it, besides that, I look at it like each profile from a different wrestler is like that wrestler's own business, you know. So
Hmm.
like Charlie Haas, for instance, if he, I think he's in LA too, actually in Hollywood, but
Okay.
so like Charlie Haas, he has an Instagram, he has an X, he has a Facebook. If you looked at this, and especially like at the conventions, you know, fans are lined up to just take a picture with you,
Right.
and they pay money, and it's a great moment. But then they walk off, and then they're done, and they're never going to see you again, and unless they see you in another convention, and then they'll say, "Do you remember me 5 years ago?" And so that's perfect to fill that gap in. If Charlie Haas says, "Hey, by the way, you can follow me on Only Wrestlers," and he treats that like it's his own business, and then
Right.
he can be as close or not so close if he chooses to the fans. Like, he's got total control over the relationship. And for me, like I said, I've been able to answer every message that I get. Sometimes I just give it a thumbs up because it doesn't really warrant more than that. It's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
RVD, I just want to tell you you're the man." So maybe he gets one of these,
Yeah.
or a thumbs up, or "Thanks, dude." But then other times, there's questions that take some thought, and really, like, at this stage of the game, until it gets too busy for me to be able to, I'm going to be giving the time and taking the time, because I appreciate everyone that went through the trouble and signed up on Only Wrestlers.
Right.
By the way, in case I forget to mention, myself and Katie Forbes, and also the Only Wrestlers profile, we're all free. We'll always be free. So you don't even have to pay money. You can sign up and follow me, and then you can see what Only Wrestlers is all about, and you can keep up with me every day as I give you my daily plans on my story.
Right. Right. Now, I do like the way that sounds, because like I said, if you don't have the wrestlers that's kind of, having to speak out about certain fans that's kind of, invading their privacy, then you have fans who are giving money away to accounts that they probably should know aren't those wrestlers, which it's kind of I'm not even sure why that is still a thing after
Yeah.
all of these years,
I got somebody from I think he's from Germany that all the time is hitting me on Instagram with the big list. Rob, are these is really, is this Bailey's real email address? And why do I have to send her $200? I got, and I say, quit sending money. I keep telling them, stop
Yeah.
it. I don't know everybody's email address, and I doubt that you're going to have their address. They're not giving them
Right.
out there, and all I could say is that I know Only Wrestlers is valid. I
Right.
can authenticate that you are actually able to connect to that wrestler. I don't know anywhere else if it's real or not. I couldn't tell you, but it
Right.
sure doesn't look like,
Right.
especially when they're asking for money. I said, the
Listen.
WWE
Okay.
wrestlers don't need your money, dude. They're not
They
asking
do
for
not.
money.
Yes, they are making way more than some of us will ever in a lifetime. So
Scammers,
trust
yeah.
me, they don't need gas money. So yes. But I really like how that sounds, and it really sounds like there's a clear commitment into keeping everyone safe, especially in this digital age where now you have AI and things like that going on. But speaking of safety, one thing that you have always been vocal about is overall wellness in wrestling, both physically and mentally. And over the years, you have campaigned alternative recovery methods, including cannabis and CBD, with wrestlers constantly pushing their bodies to the limit. Do you think the industry is doing enough to prioritize health and longevity?
Hmm. I feel like they are, in my opinion. Whenever these questions are asked about the business, really, they're really aimed at WWE specifically, because there's so many wrestling companies out there. Some of them might be just Peach State Wrestling, Cordell City Wrestling, that might be twice a year at the Blueberry Festival, or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody's talking about them being the standard setters. No one's talking about them when they're asking about should they have unions. They're really talking about WWE because they are the standard setters, and really
Right.
they're the only, I think, really big game at that level. So so when I narrow it down and can specify that I'm thinking about, could WWE do more to promote longevity and wellness? I really think that they do a lot. Honestly, I think that they do a considerable amount. Like when I've been there, it'd be really random and out of nowhere, but every once in a while we would have like a class, and they would bring somebody in that would teach
Mhm.
us, that it's important to get enough sleep and
Right.
and things like that. And um, we're independent contractors.
Mhm.
And so I look at it as me as an independent contractor. I don't expect the person that I'm contracted with, uh, that I'm doing the job for, that's paying me for the work that's on the contract. I don't necessarily expect them to go too far out of their way to be concerned about my wellness, other than the fact that they're invested in me.
Right.
So I feel like the obligation should come on back onto myself in learning what I can do to promote longevity and wellness, so that I can then be worthy of some value to be able to sign these contracts, and know that what I'm bringing to the table is up to date.
Okay. And what steps have you taken personally to kind of enforce your own wellness and longevity?
Yeah, well, I do a lot as far as keeping keeping my eyes on my health. It's my blood pressure. I get that. Well, now I check it like every day, but I've always been good at checking that 2 or 3 times a month. I check my red blood cell count. I donate blood every two
Okay.
months every 2 months, and that has a way of it's a bit of a filtration process that's good and healthy, but also it keeps me up with my hemoglobin count. And um, I sometimes will get scanned. um, Last year I went and got my lungs scanned, just for my knowledge,
Okay.
because I wasn't having any problems or anything. But my perspective was, I want to take a look at the lungs of somebody who has been a, probably most people would consider heavy to, to medium heavy cannabis usury, over what, like 30 years, over 30 years of some pretty heavy cannabis use. I just wanted to look at my lungs
Right.
and see if everything that I'm preaching, holds up, because I know there's never been evidence that it does any damage. And so people just say, well,
Right.
having smoke in your lungs can't be that healthy. Says you, but not says science. And it's like a magical smoke. And even when
Right.
you really breathe in deep, I was told a long time ago that THC goes into the corners, the little pockets of your alveoli, little air sacs, and scoops them out of impurities. It helps clean them out and stuff. And so anyway, I did that last year, just to, for that, not having
Mhm.
any concerns, but I wanted to be able to tell people, look, I just had my lungs scanned. They said that there's no sign of smoking, no discoloration or abnormalities, and my lungs look clear. So I think
Oh.
that's worthy of mention,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I
cuz
think people should know that. Yeah.
absolutely, cuz look, I know there's a misconception when it comes down to weed. You know, I can't smoke. Obviously, I have a son who suffers from asthma, but I do love my edibles. Edibles, I mean, that's like my best friend. Um, but I do know that there is misconceptions about it, and I'm glad that you were able to prove that despite you being a weed smoker, that you don't have any long-term health issues that is a from that. So I'm just really glad that you was able to clear
Yeah,
that
no,
up.
I can just say from everything that I understand, it has improved my health and my
Hmm.
longevity, like you're talking about. Jack Herer was a mentor of mine, and he was one of the gods of hemp, and he knew a lot about cannabis. And he told me that they did a test like in the 70s, some kind of experiment where where people who, and I've looked it up, and it seems like it's some weird urban thing legend because like the results are missing or something. But anyway, as the story goes, they tested marijuana smokers with cigarette smokers, with people
Hmm.
that smoked marijuana and cigarettes, with people that didn't smoke anything,
Right.
and marijuana smokers had a higher expectancy of life, which makes
Okay.
sense to me because stress is the main enemy to health, and it comes at you
Absolutely.
100 different ways. It's all stress. And
Absolutely.
cannabis is a great opponent, against stress. So that in itself makes a lot of sense.
I
Besides
like
all the
that.
medicinal benefits that have come out
Right.
with the, now, see, it was illegal to study it and to look at it forever.
Hmm.
So, now that we're able to actually look at it and separate the different cannabinoids and able to actually localize and target which cannabinoids will produce the desired effects, they're able to actually
Hmm.
use that in a medicinal structured way now. They always could have done that, but it
Right.
just interferes with all the other businesses, and that's why it's always been prohibited.
Okay. Well, look, I'm gonna show this to my mom so that she could start riding my back on it because, like I said, I definitely indulge, and you know, I've definitely have seen a difference when it comes down to my own personal health as well. But it also kind of keeps me at a it 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 helps when it comes down to my mental state. It just kind of keeps me really chill. So yeah, I'm gonna show her this. I'm definitely am. But
You said,
um
when I first, I've been an advocate since like 98, I think, somewhere around there when I did
mhm,
the High Times magazine interview. And one of the things I learned off the bat was, well, besides firsthand experience, I'm seeing all my heroes that like to smoke weed that are in great shape,
right.
athletes, superstar athletes, like Michael Phelps now, not back then in '98. But anyway,
Mhm.
what I noticed was, one, to prohibit marijuana way back in the 30s, they purposely put out disinformation with a campaign that would lie and tell ridiculous stories made up
Right.
about cannabis and its violence, and that it causes in users. And two, for it, in 1970, it was, sorry, my nose is
Oh,
itching. In
it's fine.
1970, they temporarily put it as a Schedule One when Richard Nixon made this
Mhm.
substance controlled substance list. Where's marijuana go? They put it as one, meaning the most dangerous, with no medicinal benefits whatsoever.
Right.
Temporarily, while he sent he put a little team together to do a study. Well, the people came back with the study, and they said, "Oh, guess what? It's safe. All the claims are bullshit." So. He threw that in the trash. He threw the results in the trash, and now today it's still a Schedule One from 1970. Even though so many states, uh,
Right.
they still says zero medicinal benefit. Even though the government makes a pill form of THC, 100% called Marinol, they always have, and they've always used that. And they even had some patients the federal government did that they grew weed for and used to send them pre-rolled joints in a coffee can, and it was from a program that if there's anyone survived, they were grandfathered in still as they were dropping off over the years. But it's the
Mm, okay.
hypocrisy. It's the hypocrisy of
Right.
that. So being a Schedule One controlled substance, being the most dangerous, one of the first facts that really interested me was like, where's the bodies? Like not
Yeah.
one reported overdose. How can it be the most dangerous drug and at the same time it's impossible to overdose fatally from it?
Right. Right. You're absolutely right. And that's why, because of the health benefits, I do wonder, which is what I'm about to ask you, do you think wrestling promotions will ever fully embrace cannabis use the way some major sports leagues have?
Yes, yes, I think definitely. I mean, they're subject to sponsors, and sometimes the children are a big part of that world when it comes to where the money comes in. So, but I don't think the way that it's going right now that it's that being Netflix and being able to swear and have more freedom now. I think definitely there are some companies, smaller companies that are all about that. Like
Right.
everyone's smoking weed in the crowd. The wrestlers are
Yes.
smoking, during the matches. Even there's even jujitsu like that here in Las Vegas, where they're in a cage and they smoke right before, and it's a great atmosphere. And for a lot of us, we can only feel like we're at our best when we have gone through our routine to get our spiritual frequency and vibration, up to its
Mm-hmm.
highest. And that's and
Right.
that's definitely part of
Right.
it. So I can definitely see the wrestling business embracing it. They already don't test for it anymore, so it's
Okay.
allowed. Yeah, so it's allowed for usage. It allows there's room there for you to be responsible,
Right.
and
Right.
and definitely I can see sometime it being something that everyone embraces more the more they learn about it, and really just the more the government says it's okay. I know so many people that for decades they were so against cannabis, but now that the government says it's okay, well, guess what, a few gummies helps them sleep at night, and
Yeah.
for me, it wasn't the government changing their narrative on it that directed my thoughts and my uh, in the way and my actions towards it. But we're all interested in different things or whatever.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. Because it wasn't necessarily legal here in New York only, but a couple of years ago. And even now, you used to be able to go to certain stores or smoke shops and be able to get it. But now, um, not to veer off too far off the interview, but our lovely mayor decided to kind of shut those stores down. So now
Really?
you have to, yeah, the little it was a few months ago. Him and pretty much NYPD and every other higher law enforcement just came and kind of cleaned those stores up. So now you really only have these dispensaries that can be a little pricey, but that's really all you have now. Whereas you used to have smaller little mom and pop shops that you could buy it from, but now it's not
Megan, you
really
might
around.
find this little piece of trivia interesting. Um, so marijuana got prohibited in 1937, 36, 37, where the Harry Anslinger, the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, had this disinformation campaign.
Mhm.
And in I think it's 1944, Mayor LaGuardia of New York City said, "Hold on a second. If I'm going to prohibit marijuana in my city, let me do my own testing on it and see if all
Mhm.
these claims are really true." So
Right.
he put together the LaGuardia Commission, uh, and you can look up Google the LaGuardia Commission report, and you'll see
Okay.
what I'm telling you is exactly true. They gave him the weed, said, "All right, come back to us with it." Harry Anslinger did, and then they did the study, and of course, it rebuked everything that was said about it. The
Right.
LaGuardia Commission report says it's not addictive. There is no signs of children, using it and then it being a gateway going towards something else. And there was just
Mhm.
there was a big list of everything. So what do you think Harry Anslinger did? He blocked the LaGuardia Commission report from ever being seen in public, and he banned all future testing on marijuana. That's why, until recently, we weren't able to study it. It was illegal to have it to study, even though the Institution of Medicine in Boston had lawsuits, like from the 90s. It's just been an ongoing struggle the whole time. But LaGuardia, and now you can see the report, LaGuardia Commission report. Google it. But back in the day, that disappeared, just like Nixon's report, and then that's why we didn't learn about all these other cannabinoids until recently. All we knew was that marijuana has THC, and THC is a dangerous hallucinogenic that'll make you crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
LaGuardia was a hero in the movement for that reason.
I'm definitely going to look that up because I did not know that. Definitely.
LaGuardia.
Okay. So, last question on this topic. Do you think younger RVD would have had the same career if wrestling promotions had a looser stance on weed back in the day?
It's interesting because I really did smoke like my whole career without it. I mean, I started when I was 21. I was in Jamaica, my 21st birthday, wrestling at Coney Island Amusement Park in Kingston, and the wrestlers peer pressured me into it. And it wasn't like a regular thing for a while that I would really, learn to function and use productively, to be me. But yeah, my whole career, like I can't imagine how different it would have been without it. But really, I got caught up here and there. Obviously, the big moment was when I had the WWE Championship and I had possession of 18 grams, had to drop the titles. Although people remember it the way they want to, they think that me and Sabu were driving and smoking and then got fired or whatever. But none of that's true. In fact, I didn't even get arrested, which I didn't know until recently as I learned more about the law because they went through our luggage and everything, pulled everything out, and then we had to follow them in the car. I drove and followed the cop back to the police station, gave him some money, and we were on our way. Now I know you don't drive when you're arrested. You can't drive when you're being detained. So
no,
I wasn't even arrested. And anyway, that story is just way bigger than life. But besides that, I don't think I don't. If they had looser policies, then maybe I would have smoked even more, and I think I smoked enough.
Okay. So on the topic of your podcast, One of a Kind with RVD, you offer fans a deep dive into your perspective on hot topics in wrestling, like Triple H being inducted into the Hall of Fame, Jacob Fatu, Travis Scott, smoking in the arena. What motivated you to start this podcast?
I didn't want to do it for the longest time. I got asked so many times, and I said, if you can guarantee that we'll have like sponsors and money from the get-go, because I've been too many times down that road where you put together a demo, a deck, and then in this and that, and somehow my host Dominic talked me into it, saying he's already doing other shows and he could just hook those sponsors like right up into us. And I mean, it's pennies. It's not like the money's the motivator, but it does help me feel like I'm not wasting my time doing it for nothing if there's at least a little something and a way to build it. But once I start doing it, now the reason is really the feedback that I get. I mean, it really goes to my heart when people say, dude, you don't know how much you've helped me make decisions, that were really holding me back in life, and just knowing that however I did it, that I could inspire people in that kind of way makes me keep doing it. It's a platform for me to just be myself. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting um, the tens of thousands of views per episode that some of my peers are. And then, but when somebody starts suggesting that I should look at what Maven or Devon or I don't know. There's other ones out there, but what they're crushing it, nailing it, ball out of the park, like huge numbers, and that would be awesome. But at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
it's my platform to be myself. So when
Right.
starts offering ideas of we could do this or this, I'm like, I don't want to do this or this, So it's
Yeah.
personal in that matter.
Yeah. No, I think it's. I look. I know my opinion don't mean much, but I do like the podcast the way it is. Because even listening to your podcast, if I'm not listening to it through YouTube, I'm usually just watching it through Twitter. There's a lot of stories that you share, when especially during your time at ECW. Now, growing up, I used to have to sneak to watch ECW. ECW was a little too kind of raunchy for my mom, so I used to have to sneak and watch it. But just being um of that age group, because I'm at the end of this month I'll be 38. So there's a lot of things that I used to watch when I was younger that I probably wouldn't necessarily um be too crazy about my son watching, but
Mhm.
he's at that age too where now he's starting to really want to experience wrestling, and maybe not so kid friendly like how WWE is. So I'm slowly turning him into GW, to
Mhm.
MLW, where he could really see what I feel ECW was, when I was younger. So don't change a thing. I love it the way it is. But
Cool.
on the topic of wrestlers hosted podcasts such as Taker's 6 Feet Under, the Steve Austin Show, Busted Open Podcast. How do you feel wrestler hosted podcasts influence the industry? Like, do you think it's because some people like to go to the podcast is more than these dirt sheets. They feel like the podcast is hold way more credibility than these websites do.
Hmm. I would imagine that there is a certain amount of truth to, you know, if a wrestler, a performer, maybe anybody, if they hear criticism about them, whether they read it or or overhear it or whatever, it's probably going to affect them, like in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Laugh at it, be hurt by it, agree with it, use it to change. So in the most personal manner, that one on one, I could see it podcasts influencing the business as far as that goes, as far as individuals would be, as far as they would be inspired, whether they know it or not, by
Mm-hmm.
said criticism or comments. Um,
Right.
could be compliments. It could just be like, man, you know what? That dude, man, when he gets up to the rope, he gets up there so fast, and then boom, maybe wow, that's my thing. Then I didn't until people told me how different I was with my unorthodox kicks and my, one of a kind moves. Until I heard that over and over again, I didn't really know that about myself. Then I was like, yeah, that's I really identify with that. I'm proud to be different, and I like that. I like that people see me as being different because I want to be one of a kind, and that inspired me to put more energy into that part of my life, into being proud of being a nonconformist.
Right. So, was there ever a guest that has surprised you with the most that they shared, or a story of maybe you never heard of before? Is there any?
Probably. I've brought up many stories that I know I've never talked about before, so I enjoy that when just exploring my brain. I know that I'm opening up a door that's maybe never been open or hasn't been open in 30 years. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't remember that, but we're sitting here. And I love doing that. As far as I guess, I'm trying to think if I could remember a story of.
If not, then maybe one of your most craziest, far-fetching sounding experiences as a wrestler.
Hmm. Far-fetching experiences as a wrestler. Is there? It's a thought question. That one's
I
not that easy.
I know you got some crazy stories, Rob. I know you got.
Sure, I'm sure I do. So, give me some area
Um,
to.
maybe okay. Maybe during your time in the Indies, because I know
Okay,
you also used to do Indies in Japan as well.
yeah,
So
sure. Well, here's a story that just popped into my head. So I'll just share this one. But when I was, let's see, this is 1991. So I
okay.
just turned 20. And I'm wrestling in South Atlantic Pro Wrestling, which is based out of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
And one night, I'm the designated driver. And I mean, I'm 20. I can't drink anyway legally, but I'm driving a car of drunk wrestlers from town A to town B, and I got pulled over. I
Mm,
don't know if I was swerving, speeding, or maybe nothing. Maybe it was just bullshit. But I got pulled over, and then the cop, while he's like shining a flashlight in my eyes, he's doing this. Follow my finger, just follow my finger. Don't move your head.
right.
Of course, he puts it way past where you can see, so you're almost like straining to see it. He's wrapping it around the back of your head, and he's like, don't move your head, just your eyes, follow it.
Right.
Anyway, he's doing all that crap, and he's saying, that I've been drinking, and I'm like, I haven't drank anything. You're wrong about that. Maybe it's because I just drove down from Michigan to Charlotte,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of days ago. Maybe that's some eyes I read. And he says to me, he says, well, now you tell me you haven't been drinking, but see, this test tells me a different story. I know you have been drinking. So this butthole pulls me out from behind the wheel, and I hadn't had a drop. And he put a wrestler behind the wheel that had been drinking
Mm.
and switched the drivers and said, boom, now be on your way. So I've always known that field sobriety test is bullshit, and it's
Right.
just designed for them to use however they want to use it to fit their narration. And I also learned, back then that, don't trust the popo.
You got me there with that one. I couldn't agree more. But on the topic of the indie scenes for a minute, because like I said, you've done plenty of indie promotions both across the states and overseas. And the indie wrestling scene has since grown massively. Like there's way more promotions out there now that probably was back in the day. Would you say the current scene is more easier to break into compared to when you first started?
There's no doubt about it. There's never been a time easier to get into the business because when I got into professional wrestling, December of 1989, it was a closed door society. There was still kayfabe, which meant that all the wrestlers protected what went on behind the closed doors because that's how they made their money was
Mm-hmm.
by holding on to the integrity. The storylines don't work when you talk before the show about the storylines and about what you're going to do with the fans, like they do now.
Right.
You besides the fact that you had to get accepted into this uh, like secret society, you also had to get tested. You had to get beat up in the ring to make sure that you had the heart and the durability, to handle it because it's
Right.
not most bodies wouldn't survive a career like pro wrestling. It's very very physical, and and I would think one out of several hundred probably would have even just genetically what it would take physically to endure, without having the skills, the know-how, and the special talents. But so now that there's no more kayfabe, now that everybody thinks they understand how wrestling works,
They
uh,
do.
everyone refers to it as scripted. Um, I've been in wrestling 35 years, and no one's ever handed me a script to have my match. So
Right.
uh, the only times there's a script is if it's an idea for a promo that'll have the
Mm-hmm.
words, yeah, in which they usually want me to make it my own anyway. But so yeah, for those reasons, it's easy. Anybody can just say, hey, I'm a wrestling promoter. Go rent a building, hire a bunch of guys to go in there, train themselves, and basically start drawing a little local support in an audience that'll appreciate what they're doing. And so
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
it's easier to get into now than it ever has. I hunted down wrestling schools, which I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
know existed until I started looking into it. Uh,
Okay.
and they were few and far in between. And then out of those, they weren't all credible, and some of them were scams. Just like with the wrestling promotions, like in
Mm-hmm.
Chillicothe, Ohio, wrestling promotion there is a scam. They book wrestlers, don't pay them all. They do mail-in orders. People send for stuff to get signed. They either sign it themselves, or they'll say, "Oh yeah, I'll send it," and then when the person complains, they just block them. But that used to be more relevant way back in the day
Mm-hmm.
too. Was that
Right.
straight out of the carnival, and that's where Carney comes from. And we actually speak a wrestling language called Carney, which I don't think anybody nowadays knows how to speak it. At least not how to do more than
No.
one word, one syllable at a time. But it's way different. It's way different now. And you used to have to beat somebody up, or if they talked about it being fake, you had to at least pick them up and slam them one time so that they could experience and respect what you're doing.
Right. Right. Now, because I've just started going to indie shows, and I could just see with the crowd participation and even the way the wrestlers wrestle, it's different than the wrestling that we see on TV. Some people would think it's more gritty, it's more authentic. And when I think of the indie wrestlers, there is one that kind of stands out because I had recently discovered him. And ironically, he cited you as his wrestling idol and someone that kind of encouraged him to start wrestling, and that's Matthew Justice.
Hmm.
So when I watch his matches, I do see a lot of ECW influence. I do see a lot of you in him. Have you ever met him? Have you ever talked to him? Are you familiar with who he is?
Uh, so I'm not sure who he is, so I can't really tell you if I've met him or not. There's a good chance I did, but not for sure. I don't know his face in by his name, I guess. But yeah, I inspired. I feel like a whole generation of wrestlers, and that's good and bad because they took what I did that stood out as being really cool and exciting, but then they missed out on the fundamentals of wrestling that I was taught by the original Sheik when I did
Mhm.
get trained. I mean, it was not about flying. It was all about winning the match, trying to pin your opponent, having the state of mind that everything you do in the ring is because you want to win the match, and so and it was a lot of wrestling, like actually, locking up and waist locks, headlocks, arm bars, a lot of that, and the psychology of it. And so a lot of the wrestlers now I feel like missed out on that nucleus, and so
Mhm.
they just have like the outer layers, and I think fans uh, might not be able to put their finger on it, but they know that there's something missing from the substance that they preferred or got before.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, because he's currently signed under MLW,
Okay.
and his former manager, well, your former manager, Bill Afonso,
Yeah,
manages him.
no, I I do know him because Fonzie told me that, or maybe I just know him from the picture. Maybe Fonzie sent me
Yeah,
a photo. Yeah, and told me that.
but I do see, you know, it's something about him. It's like some indie wrestlers, you kind of hope that they don't make it to the major promotions because you feel like something in them will change. And like I
Mm,
said, I do see a lot of you in him. So I'm kind of hoping that he's one of those that kind of just stay where he is when it comes down to MLW, GCW, Circus 6. He really gets around. So, I'm kind of hoping that I see you two together because, I do see a lot of similarities between you two, Matthew Justice. But
I'm
um,
keep an eye out for him for sure.
definitely. And of course, you two do a lot of crazy stunts, which is why I said he does remind me of you. In your opinion, um, what is it about these bumps or these stunts that you think the fans like really thrive on the most?
Well, I think that that the to get the most, you have to have that connection. You have to. Uh, I have to get the fans to invest into me, like during that match. I want them to feel what I'm feeling. When I
Right.
get, I show them where it hurts. You know what I mean? And 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 I get people like I believe in the moment so much that they have to, and that's something that's missing. And another thing that's missing, sometimes it's too much to ask them to feel what you're feeling just because the bumps are so extreme sometimes because they're always trying to outdo each other. So, if someone's gonna fall from the fifth 5-story building and plummet and then go through a bunch of broken glass and then a table and then boom and then just all of a sudden like stop, no one's gonna feel like they know what that feels like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a strong disconnect right there, whereas just bringing them along through getting chopped, and ooh, that stings, and just letting them experience it with you. Now you're doing
Mhm.
everything together, and that means they want you to win, and that's only maybe one of the only things that's really important out there, and unfortunately, a lot of people weren't trained that way. But I'm not trying to knock anybody. There's a lot of really good talent. I'm just talking
Right.
about the way the business overall. It's just changed a bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I know I've taken up more than enough of your time. So I just want to ask you real quickly, just is there anything left on your bucket list? I mean, we've talked about your career, you've held multiple titles, you've wrestled around the world, you married the love of your life. So is there anything left on your bucket list that you feel like you just have to do?
Yes, there is. Um, the only thing I can think of right now, though, is I have to put out my autobiography before somebody else screws up my story.
Yes.
Yeah, if I don't do it myself, then it's going to come from someone else, and it ain't going to be right. I want to share my perspective of going through my career, and that's always been important to me.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna just hit you with this lightning round questions. It's 10 questions. It's real quick. You just say the first thing that comes to mind, and then I am going to let you go. So the first question is, if you could only do one thing for the rest of your life, splits or rolling thunder?
Splits.
What's the highest you ever done the 5-star frog splash?
Um, 18 grams.
Who wins in a flexibility contest, you or Jean Claude Van Damme?
Jean Claude Van Damme.
If you had to pick one entrance theme from another wrestler as your own, what would it be?
That's a funny one. Uh, Man, I don't know anybody else's wrestling theme. Let's go with Sabu.
Which is more satisfying, hitting the 5-star frog splash perfectly or finding the perfect strain?
um, 5-star frog splash.
What's the weirdest place someone has recognized you and hit you with an RVD chant?
Uh, Men's room.
You wake up tomorrow in an alternate universe where you're not a wrestler. What's your job?
hmm. Um, Damn. Uh, I'm a writer.
Nice. Okay. What's the most bizarre or unexpected wrestling merch with your face on it that you've ever seen?
I feel like I saw in like a nightlight outlet cover like one time, like to plug into an outlet. It's a
Mm-hmm.
nightlight, but I've never been able to find evidence of that. But I remember one time in WWE 2001, because I would always sign a bunch of stuff from the fans. That's where I learned all my merchandise. That's when I started collecting my own figures.
All
But
right.
but yeah, I remember that like a nightlight, and I don't know what company made that or what, but I was very surprised to see it, and never saw it again.
Mm. If aliens came to Earth and demanded one wrestling match to determine humanity's faith, who are you sending and why?
RVD versus Jerry Lynn, so they would know that we're giving it our all. It's important to us, and we're passionate.
Nice. Last one. If a stoner movie was made about your life, who's playing you?
Um, I don't think I can name too many actors that are younger than me because I don't watch. Uh, fuck. I don't know. Let's say, damn, that's a tough one. Um, Jean Claude Van Damme.
Okay, because I was gonna say I have another question if you wanted to take that question instead, which would be, who would be your dream blunt rotation?
Okay, I've gotten asked that, but are you asking me that one? Uh,
Eh,
say
flip
Snoop
it.
Dogg, Willie Nelson, uh, my man Be Real, and Sen Dog. Mm, that might be enough. Yeah,
That might be enough. That's fine. Okay.
yeah. I
Well,
do.
thank
I do
you.
have it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I have another podcast that I'm a couple minutes late for. That
Yes, yes. Sorry about that. So,
no
guys, thank
worries.
you for tuning in. Make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to check out Rob's podcast, One of a Kind with RVD. And if by some chance someone knows where he can find that nightlight, please hit him up and
Yeah,
let
that'd be
him know
awesome.
where he
I
can
need it
find
for my collection. Yeah.
it. Thank you for
Thank you,
tuning in.
lady. Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, we are out.
See you on Only Wrestlers. RVD.